everything is declining as far as our educational system. We're getting a lot of this information. Clearly, our scores are falling so hard accordingly to PISA. Udo and I, we always talk about decentralizing is always good in this day and age.
The second is introduction to a human brain.
Hello. And that would be like amazing. Imagine if you had something like that.
Another thing that we were thinking about was, what if there's an AI that can scan your monitor and give you additional context?
Welcome to 1984.
Hello and welcome to episode 10 of the Komodo podcast. My name is Udo and this is Kim.
Hello. Are we on 10 already?
Yes, indeed, sir. And today's topic is education system, which is a very important topic for me. Fighting climate change would be way easier if we had 10 more Einsteins doing research on topics like weather forecast, engineering, and infrastructure. One way to look at how the education system is performing is the PISA study, which measures student performance in mathematics, science, and reading. So, how is it going so far? Absolutely horrible. Since 2012, students' performances in OECD countries have been going down rapidly in all three categories. And one thing that happened around the same time was the rise of social media. For example, Facebook gained 660 million users from 2009 to 2012. YouTube gained 640 million users from 2008 to 2012. Mom always said, it's because of that goddamn phone. I guess she wasn't wrong about that one. So, Kim, what do you think about this development?
Yeah, it's really interesting that we've shifted so hard from where we used to go to traditional news and media outlets. And now a lot of people, you see these huge shifts into going into from 660 million users from 2009 to 2012 to Facebook, and YouTube gained 640 million users in 2008 to 2012. That is just insane. And it's almost like two times America that just join in. Like, just imagine two huge countries just joining this one platform. Yeah, it's interesting. We'll talk a lot about a lot of different things today, but one of the things I think we should think about is kind of what, if you had back in the day, you would ring a bell in a town square or something, and then you would summon all the townspeople, and they come together, and you disseminate a message out to the townspeople. But now in the digital age, we have the kind of this public forum where everybody's voices can now kind of be heard, because there's now a two-way street. Like for Facebook, for example, people could communicate back to the source, for example, who made the content and whatever. But back in the traditional media, it was much more difficult to get in contact with these people who made and produced these episodes, So, yeah, really interesting. The PISA study shows such a lack in performance or even a decline. And you have the PISA test scores in front of us with the OECD average, and it's in mathematics, reading, and science. What does it show there?
Yeah, it basically shows a rapid decline since roughly 2012.
Yeah, and all three are just graphs that are basically, I'm looking at like it's nosediving.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, we should clarify what OECD countries are. It's basically most of the European countries, the US, Canada, Japan, Mexico, and South Korea. All in all, it's 38 countries. So quite a lot. And most of them are Western world. So I guess it applies to a lot of people.
Yeah. And
you want
PISA
to explain what PISA study is?
Yeah, it stands for Program for International Student Assessment, right? It's a worldwide study by the Organization of Economic and Cooperation and Development, or OECD, in member and non-member nations, intended to evaluate educational systems by measuring 15-year-old school pupils' scholastic performance on mathematics, science, and reading. It was first performed in 2000 and then repeated every 3 years. Its aim is to provide comparable data to comparable data with a view to enabling countries to improve their education policies and outcomes. It measures problem solving and cognition.
Yeah, so the purpose was to improve the education policies. So far, since 2012, hasn't been going very well. And I guess one of the causes is social media. I mean, people can upload a lot of shit to YouTube and then call it a tutorial.
Mhm.
So, what are your ideas on how to fix that?
Yeah, well, we started discussing what kind of you would do, and part of the problem then, I guess, is that a lot of people are not getting their education anymore than from the traditional sources that we used to get them. So now you have these TikTok trends, for example, that disseminate wrong information. They do this. It happens all the time. There's been several examples where it's created this problem where people rely on it as truthful information, and they just don't understand that it's completely not verified. It's completely misinformation a lot of the times. But if you're young and impressionable, you just see some kind of message, you might be inclined to believe that you have to combat this thing that may not be an issue in the first place. And so if we realize that people are not really getting their information from any other place more than Facebook now and YouTube and all these huge platforms, X and all these other ones, but there's hundreds of millions of users, that's where people are coming to inevitably get information, right? And it doesn't make sense that if you're wanting to get some good data, like peer-reviewed research papers, for example, or whatever, you need to have a .edu email. And if you don't have that, then you pretty much don't have access to a lot of these,
research papers.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. So you are kind of gatekept right now from, even if you are, let's say smart, interested enough, curious enough to know what to search for and try to get this information, you're still gatekept out of it, and that's ridiculous. And we know now that more people are going to Facebook, whether we like it or not, and they're going to be impressed by different information and data. And so I think the counter then is that you make YouTube, or YouTube should make like an EDU, like an educational section, where the information could be peer reviewed, but by kind of like the community, just like, I don't know, anything, whether you do it through an algorithm or if you're doing it by people doing it through like a Wikipedia type thing, or maybe even if you even do it upvoting and downvoting, so the community holds you responsible for making sure that the information is true or not true. And if people are already on YouTube, they already have YouTube accounts, for example, then you've made the barrier the least. You've made it the easiest for people to then be able to then move over to maybe like an education system that teaches people then how to do anything. It would be amazing if it was just like educational, educational from like various universities donating videos and course material, to YouTube that then can verify that information is true and then make course material out of it that people can then just study and, whatever. That would be amazing. But the problem is right now, if you want to try to learn something on YouTube, then anyone can make a video, and sometimes it's not easy to know whether you're getting good information or bad information, or someone with a motive or an angle or a belief system that they're trying to impart on you. We're always trying to make sure that people who are listening to this podcast use critical thinking first and foremost. Don't, take anybody's word, ours included, for just, make sure that you can answer the questions like why you make decisions that you do, because you're the one who have to live and stand by them. So, don't think about us as far as that goes. We don't want anybody get that idea that we're trying to sway anybody. But this data is really interesting. These and PISA is really fascinating, showing that look, everything is declining as far as our educational system. We're getting a lot of this information from probably Facebook and YouTube and right now and TikTok, of course, and whatever else. I'm not naming them just to be like picking on them. Just saying that these digital social marketplaces of ideas where people are existing and they log in and make TikTok videos and YouTube and check videos and people are there interacting. So maybe then there could be those that cause the issue also are the ones that maybe could be the solution and create the solving and making there an educational part that is just great information taken by it could be like community oriented. It doesn't have to be like necessarily like a top down enforced, but rather it could be more of a interaction again. I think decentralizing is always good in this day and age. Udo and I, we always talk about everything that's decentralized. We pretty much are usually in favor of, whether it comes to cryptocurrency, economics, power. Anything really. There's so many advantages to to decentralization versus a top down. So I think the community usually do a pretty good job of raising them. And we're not saying either that every video that would be on this educational has to be perfect and it can't be no error or nothing or anything like that. It's just that if you give access to good information, that's you clearly our scores are falling so hard accordingly to PISA that you could almost do no worse than what's going on right now. So then just release a lot of these I'm sure it would be a bunch of universities that would be happy and willing to donate course material that could be used for education. I mean, who wouldn't want their name next to some huge released material? That would probably make careers, I'm sure. So I'm sure people would line up to do it.
Yeah, actually, if you go to YouTube and go to MIT OpenCourseWare, for example, they have a bunch of course material online for free for everyone to just watch and learn from it. You have like
and they're good too.
Mathematics, computer science, and all kinds of things. The most viewed is how to speak. So the second is introduction to a human brain. So literally all kinds of things that you can be interested in, and instead of paying for an expensive college degree, you can watch it for free. So I'm really thankful that these people upload these kinds of videos, and I think that's basically what we're talking about when we say decentralized education system. That there's a bunch of content creators that upload content, tutorials, and information online. And then it's the community's job to upvote or downvote it if it's badly presented or just flat out wrong information. But on the other hand, if the content creators basically use the power of the YouTube algorithm, then a lot more people can benefit from their expertise. So usually a good teacher, for example, has kind of a small range, like 2 or 3 classes, where in each class there's 30 students, for example. So a normal teacher back in the days has a range of 100 people that he can teach. Now with YouTube or the internet in general, he can literally reach millions of people.
Yeah, exponential. And so if you're making videos and you put them on an educational section, what if you make it like a video version of just like any peer-reviewed paper? You just make it into a video, and the peer review would be the community who are watching and interacting with it, maybe. Or maybe the other thing, if you don't like that, the other thing you could do is you highlight some people who actually have a degree in those related fields, and you make them have like a blue check mark and next to the name once verified, of course. And then maybe those people could have a say in what is correct and what's incorrect information as a relation to what was being said on a particular message or video, for example. So like, for example, X, they have what is it called?
Community notes.
Community notes, yeah, where directly underneath the post you have the community note that is actually attached and pinned, I think, right, to the main message, so people can see and react to, what the responses to something. So people can say, call out BS if it's BS. They'll say, look, this is actually, the statement above is incorrect, and then you say based on this source, and then you source it, and then people can go and read their own thing and realize and quickly fact check people. And I think if you had something like this, maybe where you had something like that attached to videos, because the problem is that anyone could right now, anyone can go and make a video on YouTube, and I'm not saying that's a problem, but if they're sending out, a wrong message, like for example, they say, the Earth is flat and they're flat earther, and they just make videos talking for 3 hours uninterrupted on YouTube. If you're young and your brain isn't fully developed and you don't have, or you're not a critical thinker, then you might think after 3 hours watching to a very convincing video that, oh my God, this guy might have a good point. Like, no, it's just that no one could stop the 3 hour video and go, wait, stop, like I did to you, that you have talked about on the prior episode, that you were so thankful when you've made statements that assumed things and made too many steps too quickly. I've stopped you and gone, wait, that's an assumption. You have to prove these steps to me, because I'm not following, what you. And if you can sit there and record for 3 hours, and someone's sitting there watching, giving their undivided attention to that video, after 3 hours, they're gonna say, man, there's some truth to that, or something. Because if you didn't find value in it, you would turn it off. You would not devote 3 hours to it. So I think if you had the video then that could then show, I don't know, on a timeline, have like a little annotation or something pops up that says this has been changed under such and such whatever, since this we've known that this is actually true, source blah. And then you could just counter things so that people can be allowed to have the data in front of them at all times, the source, the Gemba, and people could then just make the decision themselves, instead of having all these authorities and top down that says what you can and cannot believe. And of course, a blue check mark to someone who has a degree in a related field, for example, it would just show and just separate out them a little bit, that look, these people may have a smaller, maybe a bit more clue about what their statement is, or not, because look, maybe that if that person with the blue check mark comments on it, he has an INR degree, for example, then maybe he's commenting on some medical post, then you also know that, okay, this guy is it's not related. So, it also shows both where they belong, and they may have some authority on the topics versus ones that don't, right?
Yeah, and how would you put that into practice? So how can I check people, basically, whether their credentials are legit or not?
Yeah. So, okay. So here's another just imagination that we came up with was what if universities had like a digital signature, okay, and it's like a checksum on the diplomas that they issue. So like just like you're giving a paper diploma in your hand, you also get this digital checksum or digital signature or whatever, hash key maybe, I don't know, and then when various places wants to check the validity of your diploma, they can just click a little link on your checksum that'll come back either red or green, basically, and say, yeah, your diploma is in effect, for example, or not, maybe. And
or not anymore.
Or not anymore. Maybe it lapsed, or maybe it was revoked, or maybe it was canceled, or whatever, or maybe it is good, and then you can get this little click that just should be like a super simple. Just check this, ping this, and then it comes back with yes or no. And that would be like amazing. Imagine if you had something like that.
Yeah, that would be really good, especially against scammers who pretend they are more educated than they actually are.
Yep. And they would keep your privacy too, because you don't have to show your diploma to the whole world to prove you're an authority. It would just be the university certifying, just through this hash key. So you can remain, just about not maybe anonymous, but because you're verified through the university, of course. But it just have it on the authority of the universities that issued these diplomas. That they are verified and the credentials are what they should be, and those master data are continually upkept.
Mm-hmm.
And then what about if you could also highlight people on your own, just like on Reddit, you can highlight people with their names with a different color, for example. So you can remember them, based on if you thought they were credible, or maybe even the opposite, maybe red for you thought that person was a moron. Useful
Hello,
if you're
Terrence Howard.
Cancelled. And then it would be also good if you want to really good for small content creator to cost less. People will peer review these guys. What does that mean? Do you know?
Yeah, that was a note that I have written down. And a lot of times when I write down notes, it doesn't make sense to other people, but it makes sense to me sometimes.
Yeah, I'm reading quote: cost less people will peer review these guys. I wasn't sure what that meant, but I figured.
Bro. Yeah, it's always better to ask.
Yeah.
So what I meant with that is sometimes you have smaller content creators who kind of investigate or research on their own, but they don't necessarily have a degree or so, or they don't necessarily have a large following. So there's not many people who fact check these guys. But if you on your own are following smaller content creator, let's say you want better journalism, and this person is going directly to the source. Let's say he's going to the U.S. Mexican border and looking at how things are really what's going on at the U.S. Mexican border, and seeing at firsthand with video footage. Then that's the best source you can get. That's Gamba. That's the primary source. And if he's providing you with the primary source, then great. You can highlight him as very good primary source also. Like have a little note, and save that guy, even though he's like not officially peer reviewed by many other people, but you kind of peer reviewed him. I think that's a useful thing.
Mm-hmm.
And if we think more about it, we can also extend that and say, hey, if I think this guy is helpful and has a lot of good research, he does a lot of good research, then let's make a poll and see if there's demand for this. Maybe more people want to know, want to have more footage about the US-Mexican border, for example. And then the results will say, yes, more people want, like 80% want it, or no, it's just 20 or 10% of people who are interested in that. So let's rather focus on something else. But if it's like 80%, then people will know, people in the journalism industry or content creators that do journalism will know, oh, this is a topic of high interest. Let's go there. Let's do some investigation. Let's do some research there, because it has clearly shown that there's demand for that.
wouldn't you see a lot of it based on the content or the videos or whatever that you create and produce that people watch some of it more? So would you need it to be polls versus kind of reading the data?
Wait, can you explain your question again?
You said there should be polls to find, you know, the where the demand is, but what if you're just already kind of producing various videos and you would just see the data and how the data, you know, like Mr. Beast does it, he would just analyze the data on the video and find which one there's high demand for and then go towards that more. You know, that's how he produces better videos, for example. So my question was, should you just not follow kind of the data already? Or what's the benefit of the polls there versus you know, reading usually just data?
The benefit is prioritizing resources. Like if you're just one person and there's like 5 different topics that people like that showed in your data, okay, then but you're only one person, then you have to. It makes more sense to focus your time on one thing or only 2 things instead of spreading yourself thin. So
I agree. It
yeah.
makes perfect sense. In sales, they always say to talk to your people. You know, talk to the people who are your potential buyers. You know, ask them. You should get to know them. You should know what the feedback is for the thing you're doing already. You should know it so well and get that feedback so often that by the time that feedback comes to you, you should already be tired of hearing it because you already know what the answer is because, you know, you've heard it so many times and you're working on it.
Another thing that is kind of important for me personally is science topics or even science papers that get released, but no one understands them. So that's kind of sad. But imagine there's someone who actually reads these science papers, and he thinks, "Oh, this one is interesting," and then he makes a poll as well. Hey guys, what do you think? Should I do a video on this topic? I don't know, let's say quantum mechanics, or should I do a video on this other topic? Let's say photosynthesis or so. And then he knows what he should pay more attention to.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and maybe he is capable of explaining stuff on a college level, but if other content creators see his poll, then they know there's demand for this topic, and he might be explaining it in his video on a college level, but other people will explain it on a high school level, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think it's useful to not mix these two. If you're, for example, explaining a higher level topic, but you have to stop every half minute to explain the most basic things,
Mm-hmm.
then it interrupts the flow of the video. It doesn't make sense. If someone doesn't even know the basics, then he shouldn't be watching the college level video. But that's where the entry level or beginner videos are for. Yeah, and the purpose of these polls is basically to provide more data for the community, so that everyone can see where's demand, where's more demand, where's less demand. Yeah, and there's different types of demands basically. One is maybe this topic or this video is explained on a level that is too high for the average viewer. So we need a video that explains it in simpler terms for people to understand it more easily. Okay, that would be one type of demand. Another type of demand is, let's say, a video that is very polarizing or very confusing. People don't really know if that's true what the guy is saying, or if it's not true. And then it would be really useful to have expert to have the attention of experts who will then comment on that video, kind of like peer review that video, and then explaining whether it makes sense or not, or with which context it makes sense. And that is kind of decentralizing the education system, because it's not only one authority that says what's right and what's wrong, but it's a bunch of people that can fact check each other. Yeah, that was one way to improve the education system, or give tools to have better research. Another thing that we were thinking about was what if there is an AI that can scan your monitor and give you additional context on the things that you read, or additional information. For example, if you see an interview of a politician, and then he's quoting some study, and then this AI would give you on the fly the study that this politician is talking about, even though he's not able to directly quote that study, but you will still have access to that information, and you can fact check him basically live. I think this would really improve the quality of discussions, because people can't just say, yeah, I once read a study that showed that this and that, and it turns out that they were lying, or they were misinterpreting the study that they were reading, just to prove or support their point. What other things could that kind of AI do?
It could identify, like you're saying, misinformation or misnomers when you know, I can think of certain politicians where, you know, it would just fact check you immediately. It would just come up red flagging. It would just use so much data, not data, but but AI power. But but because AI is so good at taking normal language and understanding what that, you know, they're going to get so quick and so fast that, yeah, I think you'll get kind of like a little community, what was it called again? Community note?
Yeah, community notes.
Yeah, but it'll come up live based on when you're watching, because it'll just say like, this is not exactly how the data shows, or, you know.
That would be so funny. Just imagine a presidential debate, and then like every 5 seconds,
Yeah,
like
just
the
everybody's
president
yeah.
opens his mouth, but after 5 seconds,
He
it
can't
goes.
talk because it just bling, bling, bling,
Yeah.
bling, bling.
Oh, that
Everybody's
was
bullshit radar
misinformation.
is going through. Yeah. Or what if someone, when they talk, they start quoting a data from something, you know, and then they could find that source, or and give you a link so that you could so everybody could sit there and read the source while the guy is talking about it, you know. Because look, AI is not replacing us. It's always going to be in with us. I think the best place of AI is when it's, you know, with the person, not when they're on their own. Either way, right? Humans without an AI, or an AI without a human, where they're trying to take over the world, you know. But you know, I'm joking, but the using them together is always going to be the best way we get the most out of these AI models, you know, or LLM, large language models.
Do you think AI can take over the world?
I don't know if it would want to. You know, what gives people motivation to do anything? What would a robot want to do anything that you don't instruct it to do? You know, I don't
Tell that to bugs in game. I didn't instruct it to mess up the graphics right here, but it did. You know, it might just, like, AI taking over the world might just be a bug.
Sure, yeah. But then it also could be AI might also solve world hunger, you know,
On accident.
Yeah, it might.
These humans have been struggling with that for thousands of years. AI is doing it on accident.
It's like, it's logical. Of course, just do this tiny thing, and it's the smallest cost that'll give you the most amount of effect. Why didn't we think of that?
And then AI's logic is, if we don't want world hunger, then what if we just kill all the humans when no human can hunger?
Yeah, that would be a logical thing I'd come up with. Yeah,
Oh, yeah, nice.
like,
Problem
look,
solved. Like,
yeah,
just make
like
more nukes, nuke everything.
humans don't like it when humans die. So if they're all dead, then they can't die.
They can't die anymore. Problem solved.
Logical. We just gotta do a quick, swift little. No, I'm kidding. Jesus, everybody's gonna be terrified after this. Back on a more positive thing. Imagine though, if you have someone who's talking about something, like let's say you're watching I don't know, whatever,
Joe Rogan.
a speech, or maybe a professor talking in an auditorium or whatever. And imagine if you could just bookmark those interesting things that they're talking about, to just go back into your AI companion later and just sit there, so you could do expanded research and further education on, well after. So that way you don't have to either just, zone out the speaker, let him continue talking about whatever, and then you could just sit there and, read, further delve into the research. That'd be so convenient. And having that access to information is kind of what we keep talking about on this episode, right? That it's so easy because most people already have a YouTube account. It's so easy. Most people are already on the Facebook or Instagram or TikTok, or, used to be Snapchat, and, no hate, but, but, why not make it so that it's easy and accessible? So having those AI companions that would do that would be, and you're going to in the future. Like, why wouldn't it?
Tell us about the one you discovered yesterday or the other day.
Yeah. So we discovered one called
Notebook something.
Notebook LM. It is notebooklm.google. Think smarter, not harder. The ultimate tool for understanding. It's going to sound like an ad. This is not an ad, by the way. But we found this AI that you upload your sources, and you could upload, peer-reviewed papers and data and websites and PDFs and YouTube videos and audio files and Google Docs and whatever else. So you have all this different, and then you can use the AI to just search through those sources. So it's not exactly what we had imagined, because it'd be cool to have it, during imagine during a presidential debate, you have this AI thing that just pops up immediately and fact checks it. So it's not exactly that, I suppose, but it is pretty cool. You can take Google Docs, Google Slides, just put them in there and then search through however many pages and however many sources that you want, and it can create little study guides and whatever else. Again, not an ad. They're just really, really cool that exists. Should be an ad though, huh?
Yeah, and if we look at the development and progress of AI in the last couple of years, actually, last couple of months, it's going to get better and better and better.
Mm-hmm.
And especially research tools, I think, are really helpful. Imagine you don't have to go through 10 different books anymore, read all of them, only to realize that you only needed 10% of what is written in there. Let
Just
AI...
imagine being a medical student and getting these tomes of books that have thousands of pages, and you have to just, oh my god, imagine then you could just having this AI search through those pages instead, make a Quizlet for the test, and just give you the answer. You don't have to sit there and read 200 pages to find whether or not that was a section even in the first place that you were looking for an answer for,
Yeah, it's a way more efficient way. And it's kind of like the leap between going to the library and searching a couple of books and Googling information. It's a big paradigm shift, and it will enable people to learn way faster. And there will be a giant gap between the ones who use this kind of technology and the ones who don't. Imagine nowadays people who don't know how to Google stuff. They are at a huge disadvantage. And in the future, people who don't AI stuff, they will be at a huge disadvantage.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people who are my generation and older, I won't reveal my age, but kind of tried ChatGPT or tried a lot of these AIs and thought it was kind of really cool thing, but maybe a bit gimmicky, or they don't understand the application of it because it is not like Googling. Prompting is not like a Google search. You write what you want in a prompt. You kind of, as much as what you want, you also exclude parameters and things that you don't want and limit it so that your search becomes more accurate. You don't, you can do that in Google. You can use like a minus and it will take and remove those words from your search so it doesn't appear, but it's not at all the same level that you do with prompting an AI with a good prompt. And yeah, I think that a lot of people who are my generation, they tried ChatGPT, didn't understand the application or really quite how to even make a good prompt because the skill from Googling did not transfer to making a search in ChatGPT, number one. And number two, as soon as they see their first hallucinated answer, they're like, I'm out, but I think it's just about education like anything else. Just learn that it is not Google. It hallucinates after a certain amount of tokens, which is, dependent on X, Y, and Z. And it's a bit more complicated. And understanding that, you cannot, at the time of this recording, take a 900-page book in a normal, LLM search and search 900 pages because there's not enough tokens that it's going to give you, from my understanding, all those 900 pages read without it running out of tokens and therefore going to hallucinate the rest or because it doesn't even index it or whatever it's called. I'm sorry if I'm using the wrong language here, but that's basically the gist of it, is that it's your lack of understanding on how the chat or ChatGPTs, for example, or Claude or whatever else, you should take a really good look at it back again because it is amazing what AI can do for you. Like, for example, I have it quite good. I had a massage today, and to get this massage, I had bought the booking online, and as the booking comes into my email, right, and I just, because they did not in their email make a Google Calendar thing, which they can, you can do, and then sends the appointment to you. You can just click it and add it to your calendar for Google Calendar. But if they don't do that, it's not a big deal because you just copy the address and the name of the thing, which is like massage, and then the time, because those things are in the confirmed of the booking in your email. So you just take those three. You put it into whichever ChatGPT, for example, and then you tell it to make a Google Calendar link that is clickable, and boom, faster than I can make the Google Calendar event myself and find the slot, ChatGPT has done it for me, and all I do is just left click it. It says, "Do you want to add it to your calendar as an event?" I go, "Yep." I double check the timing and the wording and everything's correct, and it is. It's almost always correct for me. And it nailed it the last time 100%. I made no adjustment. It just was correct the first time. And boom, and then it makes a notification for me that, hey, your appointment's coming up. I get ready to leave at that time. Dude, that is a game changer. And I don't understand when people are so resistant to learning these huge powerful tools, because I can tell you Gen Z they're using it, they're using these LLMs more in they're replacing Googling, and it makes sense. Why wouldn't you, I guess? But again,
Welcome to the future.
Yeah, you just want to be careful that, well, I mean, look, kids learn fast anyway, so they know better than me probably that these tokens run out in in a X amount of characters or words, and that it's going to hallucinate, and they know these things better than I do, I suppose. But
what if you? I would doubt that.
Well, I was going to say, for those who don't, the ones who are just like Oh, I heard about ChatGPT from my friend, so I installed the app. There's going to be those kids too that don't know anything more than what they're searching for. Yeah, you want to make sure that you understand what it is, or what it can do. It's more than
Then
just a hallucination. You shouldn't be out as soon as you get one hallucinated answers. It just means learn how the tool works, like anything, and fact check. And they are, again, not the ad, but Notebook LM. It comes up with it actually makes the cited sources. If you're searching for a term in it, in your source material, it'll say, oh, it's on, blah, 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 blah. It'll give you whatever your answer you want. And then it'll tell you in like a little bubble, the sources. You click that bubble, it'll go to the source material of that document. So you can read it yourself. So you take that hallucination out of the game. So yeah, Notebook LM, sponsor us. Okay.
yeah, I just think the service is really powerful.
Yeah.
Even if the AI is hallucinating, that can happen sometimes. But if it provides you with the exact page and the line where it has that information from, then you can fact check it on your own without reading through hundreds and hundreds of pages again. And it's a super quick and easy and efficient way to do research.
Yeah, it's just one left click.
Yeah,
It could make
we
a
tried
quiz
that.
for you. You could try. Yeah, we did. It could make a little quiz, and people were saying they were making podcast episodes with it because they were feeding it, interesting sources, and then making it make questions or topics around it, and then they were going through it, on the podcast. I was like, that's genius, so smart. People
That's-
using these AI machines for all kinds of things, and if you don't realize the potential of that, you're making a huge mistake. It's like, yeah, and all of these AIs pretty much give you some kind of free model that gives you the basics. So you can try these things out. But usually after that they want some of your money. They all are very costly. It's very costly to run these LLMs. They run very heavy on
Supercomputers.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, nice. That was kind of the technical part, or looking into the future part of this episode. Let's go to more practical things that can be improved now in the education system. And one of my thoughts is we can't just throw money at the problem. We can't just throw money at the education system and then it gets better. At some point, money is not the problem. At some point, we are lacking innovative ideas that help us get to the next level. And I would like for people to come and join us on our Discord and discuss ideas with us. And I would just start with one idea that I had, which is let's say we have one school, let's call it School A, that has really great astronomy equipment, like a telescope and all of that stuff, like a really high quality telescope. And then they can do some observations with that. So students who are really into astronomy, they are benefiting a lot from it. But what if we also live stream or put these learning sessions on YouTube, where people can, let's say, look into the stars with that telescope and then identify what's it called, star signs, like Orion and the giant belt.
Ryan.
Yeah. And these kinds of things, or look at Saturn or Jupiter and then see things that they couldn't normally see because if they just didn't have the equipment for that. Okay, that's in one school. That's in School A. Okay, and then there's also School B that doesn't have that telescope. But instead, in School B, we have equipment for biology, like very high quality equipment for biology, like microscopes and I know samples and DNA or so. Okay, so the experiments that can be done in school A about astronomy can be put online, and then school A and school B are basically sharing each other's information, sharing each other's experiments, which makes the whole system way more efficient. So instead of each school buying all of the equipment, it's just one school specializing in one subject, another school is specializing in another subject, and this way basically the whole community, like a bunch of schools, are benefiting from each other. And I've actually seen videos like that, kind of similar, and I think that's really cool. And it was a teacher who was explaining convection to his students, like that warm water is flowing upwards and cold water is flowing downwards, with a kind of tricky experiment. But that's really cool for students to see, because they are seeing it live. Like they are seeing that it's actually reality and not just something that they have to learn by heart that is written in some textbook and that they just need for the next exam or so. But that's actually real life. That's real physics. That's stuff that they can see in nature or experience in nature. And I think that's important to see for people to learn. If they don't know where that knowledge is coming from, or why that knowledge is useful, then it's harder to keep in your brain.
I also like that you're tying together that emotional connection to that. It's cool to have those things proven to you, because it gives you a sense of, as Neil deGrasse Tyson would say, a wonderment and amazement and curiosity. It sparks all those good things in us, instead of these theoretical tests, which kind of, I would argue, do the quite exact opposite. It murders any kind of curiosity you would have. How many people don't enroll into different university degrees and then after a couple of months go, I hate it. It just kills anything you thought you liked about it. That happens. But in your sense, if you buy a specialized school equipment that's quite expensive, like astronomers, whatever, observatorium, whatever you would call it, the Neil deGrasse Tyson, don't kill me, then it makes sense that you could kind of get the most out of things. So then that's what one school gets, and then a different school, maybe they buy, like my old university, they had a mock-up UN auditorium because it was, political science. So discussing things and having a mock-up auditorium so people could role play various things were very important. But maybe not every school can afford one of these things because they take up a lot of space and so on. The secondary thing I was thinking too is that, then you take those students and then you send them over to different schools on a rotational basis or whatever, so that you can also go and do cool stuff with other schools and utilize their tools, cool specialized tools, so that you can keep this amazement and wonderment. Like what people can get network and they can meet other people and say and find out what makes them tick and why they get their passion from. And then they can explain right back why they get their passion from. And then, I think that would just be so nurturing as well to each other to have that kind of system set up that way. So makes sense from your German economic theory, but, also let's realize that it also kind of makes a lot of experiences and networking and amazement and wonderment. I like it. I like what you got to say there. I like it a lot.
Nice. Yeah, just imagine having someone who's just as passionate as you are at a certain topic. Someone who you could talk to all day about that. Like for me, I don't know, when I was in elementary school, that would have been dinosaurs. I could have been talking about dinosaurs all day. It would have been really nice to have someone to talk about it. all the time, and then exchanging information with each other. Like maybe I was reading this book and the other guy was reading another book on a different dinosaur topic, and then we would come together and talk, and that's us literally benefiting from each other and learning from each other. So that's great. And another thing with exchanging students, you're basically also exchanging teachers, because like students from school A are benefiting from a teacher who is working at school B, and a lot of times you read in news articles and stuff like that there's not enough teachers, and we need more teachers. And I think we can really make it more efficient by giving the good teachers the opportunity to reach more people, not only in person with these exchange programs, but also on the internet. Because I think there are really a lot of good teachers out there. Like me personally, I'm thinking about my physics teacher back then, or my biology teacher. These two were really great teachers, and I really loved learning when they were there teaching. And I'm imagining, what if they had a greater range? What if they can teach to more people than just me and my 20-something classmates?
I think of Jordan B. Peterson, you know, how many people sat in his classrooms over the years, in his lectures, and then interestingly enough, they basically like kick him out of university, and then he goes online and just he's not teaching 30 students at a time now anymore. He has blown up with these videos. Is that 2.1 million? Is that what that says? Personality, just a person. 2017 personality, 17 biology and traits, agreeableness, 49-minute lecture, 2.1 million, 7 years ago from the time of this recording. Unbelievable. Another one gets 11 million. Just crazy stuff.
And all of that for free. A great teacher.
Yep.
Honestly, like mediocre teachers, they're basically just doing their job. They're just there for the paycheck, and then collecting the homework and grading your grades. But great teachers are the ones who are really impacting, that are really having an impact on your life, and you learn lessons for life from them.
Yeah, and I think we can all, if we're lucky that we've had some kind of teacher or professor that we liked, you know, I think we can all relate to thinking about what an immense impact those people tend to have on us. I think.
Well,
whether you say it out loud
now,
or consciously or not, or if you just think about it when you're sitting by yourself because you're a little bully, you know. I think everybody knows a teacher. I mean, I hope that everybody who listens do. I hope they're that fortunate. But if you are, you found that one that connected with you at some point. Yeah, I agree. They're life changing. They like mold your brain in a way that's just insane. You can have a growth spurt with them, you know, a mental one.
Yeah, and the internet has basically enabled more people to get influenced by great teachers.
Speaking about growth, what do you think about, you've written down here, no grades till circa 8th grade. It should be mainly about growth. What do you mean?
What I mean by that is that when we look at tests or exams, I think they are more like filters. So the best people get to the next round, basically. And then the next round is college, and then the next best round is after the bachelor's, it's a master's degree, and so on. And I think education system shouldn't be a series of a bunch of filters. It should be about growth, and testing should only be voluntary. so that you're basically just checking your stats in the sense of like when you're sprinting and see how fast you are right now. So you're just checking in on how you're doing. It shouldn't be decisive of whether you have to repeat the class or whether you can get to the next school or so, especially in the beginning. So until like 8th grade or so. And during that time, from 1st grade to 8th grade, I think that the students should learn through projects, for example. I think projects where they learn how to use tools, they learn how to work towards a goal. That's what these projects are for. And projects should be about building something, designing something, writing a good story, composing music, or drawing, that kind of things. I think all of these are examples of you turning your thoughts into reality. And that's basically what you want in adults as well. The capability to think something and then turn these thoughts into reality. And now I have some specific examples on what a project could look like. Like, for example, a elementary student. The task could be just as simple as draw your own fantasy kingdom with dragons and unicorns, and you can have your castle, anything you imagine. And yeah, then you have to draw it. And then the student also has to make decisions, like deciding on what part of their kingdom they want to take more time on. So if they want to have a really, really nice castle with a lot of details, a giant crocodile-infested moat, and giant catapults or trebuchets that are really cool with a nice design, then that's what they spend their time on. And then they don't develop or don't draw many horses or dragons or whatever. But that's up to them. Yeah, and another example is writing stories, or another thing that they can do after that is telling a story from their drawing. Use that as inspiration to create a story, maybe something like a fairy tale. And then they start with, yeah, once upon a time there was a kingdom with a bunch of dragons, and yeah, something along those lines. And that's where the teamwork comes in. Like, for example, one student might be good at drawing, and another student might be good at telling stories or even creating his own stories. And then these two can team up together and make something more beautiful, more creative, more complex out of the initial idea. So it does teach the students teamwork, communication, and prioritizing their goals. Another example would be building your own racing car. You could start with these little toy cars, like Hot Wheels or so, and then you could paint and cut out parts made out of cartonnage, or if you have a 3D printer, maybe even a 3D printer in your school, then you could add these little parts onto your car so it looks cooler, just so it looks more awesome. And then the next day, the students wake up and see how awesome the car they designed looks like, and get inspired to do more. And maybe in the future they will become a car designer or so. And what I'm trying to point out here is that real life jobs can be started pretty early on a small scale. And skills that are learned on these smaller scale jobs, they can be transferred to the real life job. And if these small projects get the students to be inspired and excited, then that's perfect. Then they would want to learn more. They would like with the racing car example, they would want to learn, for example, how does a 3D printer work? How can I use it? How can I customize it so I can use it for my own needs? And that's a whole different approach compared to just like test taking. Yeah, you have to learn this formula by heart so you can use it for the test. And after that, you basically don't use it anymore. But here in this case, in the case of projects, you have that goal that you want to achieve. And then you see the tools that are available to you. And then you use them. And then that also teaches you the importance of these tools and how useful these tools are. And if you basically go a step further, then you realize that you can min-max these tools. You can have more advanced knowledge of these tools if you read more about them, research more about them, learn from other people. In case of 3D printers, there might be models online already on Thingiverse, it's called, I think, right?
Yeah.
And then you can get tips from creators there on how to model, what are tricks on how to do your own things, and what are the limitations, what material to use, and all of that. And that's you min-maxing the tools that you have available. And that's the difference between average people and the best of the best. And it's always good to strive for something better.
Yeah, you learn a lot about setting goals, about yourself, about perseverance, about delayed gratification, about how you learn too, because the problem with test taking is that it's not applied. Yeah, okay, you apply it by putting it down on a piece of paper right back again. You just regurgitate that information right back on a piece of paper. But instead getting a result or getting something produced out of your labor and your vision that's something completely different entirely. And as I talked about on the last education revamp episode, I think, if I wasn't beat down so hard by these grades and the comparing and fitting through only one lens, which was, how well can you memorize really more than application? I never understood that. It was always the reason for me why there were some people who, we considered street smart versus book smart. And some people were really good in school. They were good test takers. But other people were street smart. They knew how to apply, but even if they didn't have the highest of education or decision making, but that application always got people much further, I feel like, than, well, it depends, I guess, on further. But I felt like, at least for me, the people that I connected with were the street smart ones. The people who could do really well on a test were not really impressive to me. It was proving very little. It was very, I don't know, it's a short-sighted way of measuring. And I was thinking that what if you have, the AI assistant maybe give you feedback through constantly throughout the coursework, so you don't need to do tests because the AI already know what your level is based on some querying questions it could ask, and have it more like a dialogue rather than a hard set grade. And you could have a professor or a teacher then query that AI and say what's the students learning, and be like, oh, they're missing in this or they're getting in this. Imagine. I feel like there's so many things here that could be built upon.
Well, honestly, I think it's useful to have a human being as a teacher instead of a robot.
Yeah, but it's less and less. I mean, it already is. Like, teachers going just through course material that's required. They're not actually,
Yeah, I think that's bad as well.
Yeah.
Like, having a personal teacher, it's.
Yeah, because the thing with your way, you can get better teachers, but you can also get worse teachers. I think is the fear and argument. Whereas if you standardize and grade all the schools the same way by giving them certain amount of funding, for example, like in some states or whatever, then you have everybody something that you can measure people like schools or whatever against, but it also nails down the outliers, the ones that are really good that we were talking about, or that could be really good.
Yeah, the next Einstein or so.
Yeah.
Why would we want to limit these guys?
Yeah.
So I wouldn't have things standardized. In fact, quite the opposite. I would want things to be more
Decentralized. Here it comes again.
here it comes again. Yeah. So more like each state, for example, or county has their own rules on, for example, what projects they want to do, because then they would also have the materials and tools ready in the school for the students to use. So that would be pretty great. And if it was more standardized across a whole nation, I think that's bad. Yeah, like the people who are very good at one thing and bad at another thing, they would still have to be good at that thing they are bad at just to pass the test. Or otherwise they are below average, below the standard, and then they would get punished. Obviously, it's hard to implement, but that's why it's important to get more efficient with learning, like with the AI tools that help you research. And we are trying to point out ideas that are useful in terms of bringing the education system to the next level. Because clearly we've been stuck for almost 10 years, maybe even more.
Yeah, or even declined.
Yeah.
We wish we were stuck.
Yeah. True. All right, back to these projects for schools. A couple of things that I would want to mention. The project needs to have a clear goal where students can start small. And also the students should learn how to break down their goals into smaller sub-goals that are achievable for them. And then they work themselves up. Also, students should learn how to theorize on how to solve a certain issue.
But
Like,
before you go to that one, why should they make smaller sub goals over just one big goal? What's the benefit of breaking that down?
it's generally a good approach if something seems impossible to you. If you break it down into smaller goals, then if these smaller sub goals are small enough, then that seems achievable to you, or it might even be actually achievable, and then you have more motivation to do it. If I would tell you, yeah, bro, build a rocket now, then you would be like, that's fucking impossible. I have no idea about anything about a rocket.
Oh, you don't know me, son.
Yeah.
You don't know me.
Oh, sorry for assuming, man. But if you break down into smaller subcodes, then one of these smaller subcodes might be you having a do you know these science experiments with water bottles, and then you have I think carbon dioxide pumped into them or so, and then you release it, the water bottle, I mean.
Mhm.
And then all of that carbon dioxide is shooting out of a bottle,
Escaping?
and then and then and then your
You have a rocket.
rocket starts flying. Yeah, so that's where you basically understand the basics, and then you go to the next step and maybe use something more explosive or so. Yeah. Maybe kids shouldn't be trying that out at home. But and then you see that even though it's basically an unachievable goal at the beginning that you set yourself, you still made progress. And while you were making progress, you were learning things that are useful for you to get to the next step.
Yeah, and I also it makes it creates some self confidence as well. If you can meet these small
Exactly.
little goals on a more regular basis, that's more important than one big goal at the end where all the stress and it's pass or fail, it's binary. Whereas if you have smaller goals, you'll know you're on the right track if you're breaking it down and you're passing these goals. By the time out of 3 out of 5 sub goals, you know that even if you fail, you know where it failed,
And that you are on the right track.
and that you're on the right track and that you can meet these goals and set out these visions and accomplish them. It gives you quite a bit there as well, I think, mentally.
It's actually a really good point that you have, because if you have a big exam at the end of a semester, for example, then you have no idea what the result will be. You have no progress bar that tells you whether you're doing well or not. So what you end up with is constant anxiety throughout the semester, because you don't know whether you will pass the exam or not. And then you're in this constant state of worrying, which is not healthy. It's just stressful. But if you see your own track record of achieving one sub goal after the other, then this gives you confidence in your own skills. You have literally proven it to yourself. And that's the momentum that can keep you pushing forward. All right. The next thing is let students theorize a solution. And when you're working on these subgoals, but at some point you will get stuck because the problem is too hard, too difficult. And then it's your turn to theorize. You have to really think and research on, okay, how do I do this now? And that's an important skill to have. In life, you will always face problems that you've never faced before, that you don't know how to do. And some people, especially the people who are working at the frontiers of science or engineering, they're literally working on problems that no one has ever done before. 10, 20 years ago, no one has ever done AI. 30 years ago, no one has ever done quantum computing. 100 years ago, no one has ever done theory of relativity. That stuff had to be invented by someone. And these people are pushing this principle of theorizing and thinking to the limit. And that's a useful skill to learn. Okay, that's it about projects. Next thing is learning languages. I remember when my teacher tried to teach French to me. It was horrible. I barely passed the test. Basically, I basically don't speak any French. Not only basically, but actually.
It's a
So
difficult language.
yeah, but it was also taught in a weird way. It was just like vocabulary tests, grammar tests. I've I I literally never had a real conversation, and I think
No
that's bad.
application. Yeah.
Zero application. So I think languages should be learned from people who are on a native speaker level.
I think the best way to learn a language is being surrounded in it, in the culture or in the country if you can.
Yeah.
And then you will be exposed to it constantly and you'll just pick up things whether you pay basically whether you pay attention or not. But then if you cannot do that, the next best thing would be someone with a high proficiency and understanding of that language and the grammar of it, and also the best way maybe to teach would be good too. If they have a teaching background would be ideal, I guess. Maybe some people know how to do very well but they don't know how to teach.
Yeah, that's a good point. But then I have no idea how babies pick up the language. I guess it's just imitating.
Imitation and elasticity of the brain, I guess. Elasticity, whatever.
One thing that I was just thinking about is what if we play video games together with, I don't know, me, for example, playing video games with some French people. And then over time, I just pick up some words from them. That would be literally me imitating them. And then maybe sooner or later I pick up more words, even sentences, and then I start to speak a little bit.
Yeah, I would say that happens. So I have a kind of a funny story that this reminds me of. When I was little, people in northern Sweden, they can have quite a thick accent to the rest of us Swedes. And when I was playing Diablo 2 with a friend back on Ventrilo, back when that was a thing, back in the day. And I was playing with this guy every single day, but I had never met him. But we played Diablo 2 and logged in after school, but we were always just playing. And he had such a thick accent that after a little while, a couple of weeks of me playing this game with him every day after school, I started getting some of that accent. And my mom said, "Did you make a new friend in school? Where's his accent come from?" And I told her, "No, I just have this guy that I've been." And so even back then, I learned, apparently, I didn't even notice that I had been copying this guy's accent a little bit unintentionally, so much that my mom picked up that and she thought I had a new friend in school. But it was just my online buddy.
I watch way too much YouTube, so I guess I picked up American English a little bit. Because when I think about times, like 5 a.m., 6 a.m., and so on, yeah, I use 6 a.m. or 6 p.m. instead of 18 o'clock. 18 o'clock is more natural for me, actually. If I speak German, it makes more sense to me.
Yeah.
It's just that 6 p.m. I just got used to it because yeah, I watch way too much YouTube.
Yeah. Same thing for me. When I speak Swedish, it would only be, 2000, for 8 o'clock. But if I were to say that in English, no, it has to be AM for morning and PM for afternoon. And it's easier to keep a 12-hour clock than the 24-hour clock, I suppose. But I was more used to the quote-unquote more difficult way of doing it first. So I think that's probably what maybe made this easier.
Okay, on to the next one. I think the curriculum of a good education system should promote critical thinking, learning how to research, and discovering a variety of skills at the beginning. And if you found your passion within these many skills that you've learned, then you should really focus on that one thing and become really, really good at it instead of spreading yourself thin. And then there are a couple of other things that I would personally call basic knowledge that everyone should figure out about their own life. First one is, how do you relax after a stressful day? Because you can't be working all the time. And there's a good story to explain that further. Two lumberjacks are chopping wood every day, but one lumberjack always disappears in the middle of the day for 1 hour. But at the end of the day, both of them chop the same amount of wood. So at one day, one lumberjack asked the other, "What do you do when you leave in the middle of the day for 1 hour?" And the other guy says, "I go sharpen my axe." So even though the guy who sharpens his axe is technically working less hours, he's still doing the same amount of work. And what the story is trying to tell is that you need time to sharpen your axe. You have to actively sharpen your axe on a regular basis. Because if your axe is shit, then no matter how much time you put into your work, you won't cut anything. You won't get any shit done. So learn how to recharge your batteries, learn how to sharpen your axe, and learn for yourself what works for yourself. And you have to try out a lot of things and then really be honest with yourself on what has really worked and what didn't really work. And maybe take some notes and see what works and what doesn't work. I hope you can find that for yourself. The next thing is what food gives you energy? And then I have two examples. For example, Joe Rogan is mostly eating meat, and that works pretty well for him. And the other example is a jiu-jitsu fighter named Mikey Musumeci, and he's only eating pizza and pasta, so a lot of carbohydrates. Whereas Joe Rogan basically mainly protein and fat. So literally two completely different diets, but one works for Joe Rogan and the other diet works for Mikey Musumeci. And yeah, again, like you have to figure out what works for you. There's no perfect answer that you get from the best dietitian or so. You have to figure out what works for you and listen to your body. The next thing is how to stay fit. What kind of physical activity do you enjoy? Just something to keep your body moving and keep your blood flowing.
And not to be afraid to think outside the box, because I think that when you say physical activity, for the people who don't do physical activity, that's like a foul word you just said, you know. But I think that it doesn't have to be that way. For, you know, I have these inlines with 120 millimeter wheels, which make them super efficient at rolling, and it's just 3 wheels instead of 4, which again reduces some of that loss of loss of, is it inertia? Loss of, I don't know.
Correct.
Yeah, loss of effect. So they go really quickly. So you might say like, okay, well then that's not that good of an exercise, but it's so fun to do that I go out for, you know, a long time skating around the whole city with those things. And so even if it doesn't quite make sense, if it's an exercise or it gets out to do things, just get an excuse to do that thing. Like I bought inlines so that I could go inlining outside. You know, if you don't know what inlines are, they're like rollerblades, you know, but all the wheels are in a line instead of 2 and 2, you know. Or another thing that I like to do, or used to love doing, was I had this local go-karting place back in the day that I lived not so far away from, and I would go go-karting with my friends. And good luck going a couple of races go-karting on these really fast go-karts on a quick track. Good luck not being exhausted. It's so tiring. Or going dirt biking, or a bunch of million things that you could do that just costs a bunch of energy and is so freaking fun to do. Electric bicycles. Oh my god, they're so fun. And you can do it so that it becomes a workout for you, you know. So yeah, I know all those things cost a bunch of money, but there are things that you could do that doesn't cost as much money. Maybe you like skateboards. A skateboard is relatively inexpensive, and then learn how to go on skateboard, and then that's your exercise, you know.
I just go for walks.
There you go. Walks are amazing. I go for walks all the time, and I go for runs all the time. Running can, or like any hobby, be expensive if you want it to be. You know, you buy a headlamp and all the gear and new shoes every so often and all that. But really, it's also super cheap to get into. You just put on a pair of shoes and start hoofing it, you know? Costs almost nothing. Most people have a pair of shoes already. If you don't, unlucky. But yeah, just trying out new things all the time to see what really you find fun and enjoyable to do. Like I was in a roller coaster theme park not too long ago. I bet that took a bunch of calories from me. But you know, the whole time I'm riding roller coasters, literally so fun.
Well, it has been a while for me. I haven't been on a roller coaster for, I don't know, 10 years or so.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, you gotta go. And
It's time,
kick some life back into you. But what if you so what if you have your school then, or your education set up so that you have 3 options that you're required to take as part of a class, for example, for physical activity. So let's say one makes it inline skating, another one's weightlifting, another one is maybe carrying the boats and the logs. You know,
if your name is son.
You don't know me, son. And and then you have to stick with it for, like, let's say, you know, a week or something like that. And then physical activity should be at the end of the school day, kind of having fun with your friends. And if you want to do that for longer, you can extend it because you don't have another class or something that's going to come and interrupt it. So of course, you inform your parents and get their approval just to stay extra if that's what you would do. But or you could option it also as in the morning as a wake up exercise. So some people, they like to go for a run even with their coffee or before their coffee. And I cannot relate. I'm a late night runner. I like to run when everybody's asleep, but I do it after people go to sleep, not before they wake up. I don't like doing it that early. So for me, that wouldn't be an option. But for some people, of course, it would be. Imagine then. And then if you don't like it, then you switch to another option and then keep doing it until you find something that you like, or at least don't hate, and then learn as a young adult that, look, physical activity is going to be part of your life. It needs to be. I feel like some adults think that physical activity is a choice. Like, oh, it'll kill me, but not right now. So I don't have to go for an exercise. But that's just a silly way of looking at it. Is you want to look at it as you want to get higher quality of life while you're alive, not make your life longer. That's not the way that's motivating to our brains, But you should do that so that you look better and that it's easier. And one of the reasons why I exercise or and run and try to keep somewhat in a shape that's not a pear or an apple is because if anything happens to me, I want to have as much health as I can have possible, because it takes. Maybe you've heard the saying that it takes you have to be really healthy to be ill, because usually there's so much paperwork and so much stupid stuff that you have to do with your setting up your medical and whatever, maybe an insurance and all that. Depending on who you are and where you are in America, as an example. It's so annoying. It's so much. And I feel like it's the same thing when when you really stumble and break, some bone or whatever. You want to make sure that everything else is working in the best shape that it can, so that you can come back as healthy as quickly as possible, and also do it with less difficult rehabilitation, And some people, because they think, just like smoking cigarettes is not going to kill me today, they pawn it off to tomorrow, but tomorrow never comes. And then you blink and then you're 30, and you blink again and you're 50, and you wonder where did time go? And you want to make sure that, just like you would do regular economic investing through all of those years, you also want to invest in your health and your body. It only makes sense that way. But for some reason, like I said, some people feel like, that's not something I have to do. But yeah, you do. Everybody does. And your mood will be better too. I mean, it's just everything is good. Everything's good about it. You feel better. You have a lower sugar craving. You feel better about your body. Your self-esteem goes up. Your hormonal and all those levels are increased and bettered. And, just it's insane what physical activity does to us.
I think what some people should keep in mind is that sometimes the physical health is not the main bottleneck that is keeping them away from a happy life. Sometimes there's bigger factors that in their life that are stressing them out a lot, or even making them depressed. And that's why they don't have the energy, or they feel like they don't have the energy or motivation to do exercising. And in these cases, the main problem has to be addressed first, whatever that might be. Maybe it's a toxic relationship, and then you'd have to break free from that first. And exercising might be a good distraction for that. But you have to identify the main problem first. All right, next thing I would include in the curriculum is discussion time with class. So it's basically just the whole class, all 30-something students coming together and discussing, for example, recent events, important global problems like world hunger, corruption, climate change, or gang activity or so, or discuss important local problems, One thing that I learned this week is Japan, or I think it was Tokyo, has 7 floods per year, which is quite a lot. And obviously, if there's so many floods, then a lot of infrastructure gets destroyed, and then they have to rebuild it again. And overall, it sucks and it costs money. So they decided to build this giant structure that helps them prevent floods. It's basically a giant underground system where the water can flow in, and it has to be water resistant and waterproof and very stable, so it can survive a flood. So when it's flooding season or when there is a flood, then all of that water or a lot of that water goes into these underground tunnel systems. That way, the damage is mitigated. So that's an example of a local problem that people might be thinking about, and students could improve on. Another thing that could be discussed in class is dangers that people face nowadays. Nowadays, it's screen addiction and I don't know, crypto scams or so, and that's good to know, to be informed, so that it's harder for scammers to scam you, so you don't lose your livelihood because of these people. I think these discussion times are very, very useful to promote healthy conversations. Even if I disagree, like for example, Kim and I are politically quite the opposite. He's liberal and I'm a conservative. But even though we differ a lot, we can still talk like normal people, and we can still discuss ideas and try to find solutions. Because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. It's not about who's right or who's wrong. It's about finding a good solution.
Yeah, and just to clarify some things, because you called me liberal now and libertarian last time we talked on one of the earlier episodes. So just for those who are listening, just to clarify my position, right now I would probably say I'm socially liberal and fiscally conservative. So that's probably the closest that we can get to my political leaning. So when he says libertarian and liberal, that's because it's socially liberal and fiscally conservative is probably most of the time where I'm going to be leaning. Of course, I picked my independent topic, so I make up my independent my independent mind on each topic. But yeah, that's the closest we can get, I guess, for a shortcut. And one of the things I think that's really interesting as well, that should be taught, is not only your relationship with money, but also your partner's relationship with money. Because, in school right now, we're taught just algebra. Maybe if you have a good school, you're taught credit cards and compounded interest and household income and, those types of things. That would be a high level, but we never seem to really talk about it. I don't know if it's because it doesn't belong to an economics class and maybe more to a psychology class, but for some reason, I feel like they shouldn't be that quite separate. You should also really know how you and your partner view debt and expenditure and income and goals, because that's another thing that's not taught in school. And finding someone who might be maybe a lot more liberal with money and like to spend, and you only live once and what's the point of saving it kind of attitude, versus someone who really wants to invest in the future and make sure they can retire comfortably, maybe pay for their kids' college, etc. Those two people are not going to be compatible as little as, just like anything else. Just like you might like your partner, but you're not sexually compatible with that person because maybe your libido is much higher or much lower. And then you just know that it's going to put a huge strain on your relationship if you do not confront these kinds of things. And you should probably learn how to have these healthy conversations about what are your goals and what are my goals with money, and how do you tend to spend yours, and what do you prioritize, because it'll be difficult otherwise with with finding that out much later. And you do all the time. People even get married before they really, they buy houses together before they really figure out an answer to this question of, because look, it's not so simple as saying, hey, we should save and that's a smart thing to do. Some people feel really, really emotionally trapped if one partner says, we need to tighten our belt, we can't afford to spend this, whereas the other person might say, look, I have this money that's burning a hole in my pocket. These are strong, just know that these are strong emotional reactions that are not logical, and having these conversations are going to be difficult because they're emotional, not so much logical. If you can come up logically together that, yeah, you're going to put away X amount, and you have these goals that you set up, and you're agreeing on that, and everything's then everything's Gucci. But just know that that's not as far from what happens with most people. Most people have disagreeing opinions about how to spend and what their relationship is with money. The other thing I think that goes along with this is you should also always do, and I try to apply this to my own life as well, do something that's relatively difficult. And that relative is a perfect word because it's relative to you. But make sure that you have something that is constantly always putting you a little bit outside your comfort zone, so that, because that's where you grow the most. I think that's super important. And some people, we make ourselves so comfortable, but it's really a huge mistake. You want to make sure that you stay as much time really in that uncomfortable but not dangerous water. You don't want to make sure you don't want to risk, and you don't want to fail, but risking a little bit that you can at least fail and it's on the table will make you just that much sharper, I think. And so for me, that's always running. I always am on some kind of running plan, a half marathon or a full marathon plan. And it's difficult, but so satisfying. And when you do something that is really difficult, everything else will be relatively much simpler. And I mean everything. Everything else that you think is really difficult, as long as you do something that is seriously difficult, then it's kind of like this. You know how if you have a headache, for example, and then you stub your toe and you're banging into something, and all of a sudden all you can feel now is your toe. You don't even feel your headache for a little while, right? It's like that. If you do things that are relatively difficult, then the other things become much simpler, and they kind of ease away. They're not as noticeable. So where you might have like a relationship argument or fight, for example, and then you go for a half marathon run and you come back, I promise that fight doesn't seem as complicated anymore. It just works that way. Not sure why, but do things that are relatively difficult for you, enough to where you can, it should be like, I don't know exactly the percentage, but in my head it's something like 85% of the time you should succeed, and you should have about a 15% chance where 15% of the time you should fail, maybe, just to make sure that you have it enough exciting that you're pushing yourself, that it should be on the table, but it should be not often enough. So maybe 1 in 10, maybe one time in 11 you'll fail, and then adjust, and you'll learn something from it.
Damn it, I wish the lottery probabilities would be like that.
Yeah.
I'd
Oh,
probably
yeah. I
instantly.
know. Yeah, it would be great, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Okay,
Sounds like a bad percentage, but when you put it in those terms, it's a fantastic percentage.
Yeah, what I'm trying to point out is it has to be difficult, but something that you are capable of controlling. So you have influence over the result. Like,
Yeah.
for example, running, you can push yourself harder. You can hydrate yourself more, drink enough water before and during the run, and I know get some minerals by eating a banana or so. That kind of stuff is what you are in control of. But lottery, you're not in control of that. So doing that is completely useless.
I think of it as like a video game. If you play a game where the setting is too easy for you, it's not challenging, it's not fun, it's not engaging. It's just how our reward system works in our brain. You should know that and treat it accordingly. So yeah, it should be that you don't fail most often because you want to gain confidence and feel and expertise, and get better and improve. But yeah, you want to also make sure that it's not for free, because doing nothing or setting up goals like that where you cannot fail, that's that is kind of what depression is. That's the regression of it all. Depression is the opposite of progression. Whenever I feel like I'm going backwards in relationships or friendships or investing or economic, my even spending too much money or, pick a thing. When I go backwards, I always feel like that. I get that's depressing to me. And when I feel the best is when you're progressing, you're setting new goals, you're meeting those goals, achieving those goals, surpassing those goals, whether it is, savings goal or a time or a time for my run or even a distance for my run, all of those things. As long as I keep measuring, you can and set goals and you meet those, you have progression, and that's super, super rewarding to our little lizard brains. I don't know why it is, it just is. Another one, learning how to set boundaries for ourselves in our human brains, for some reason, is very difficult to set boundaries. We are uncomfortable. We're social animals, but we are uncomfortable setting up boundaries and asking boundaries to be respected. And for some reason, I don't know why it is so difficult. It's something about our psychological, makeup that makes it so that we are non-confrontational. We don't want to set up boundaries that are healthy. And because we're not taught what a healthy boundary looks like in school, one, you're not going to ask for a healthy boundary because it's already difficult. So you're already incentivized to not do that. So people get taken advantage of and they feel like crap all the time because they should set up healthy boundaries and then make people respect them. But they don't. And then because we're also not taught, then they definitely don't happen. And I think they should be taught in schools, because if schools started normalizing that, hey, look, people will set up boundaries for you. They should be respected. And it is to make everybody feel healthier and happier. And look, when someone says to a boundary, this is usually how they're going to ask. And this is how you respect it. And this is, and blah, blah, blah. And then you act within those. But we don't talk about it. We don't teach that, at least not in any school I've ever heard of. But I don't understand why, because it would make it so much easier if the teachers have this conversation with all the students when we're young. Then it would be much easier to fulfill it, continue it into, older age or even the workplace eventually, right? And that makes you easier to be taken. That makes it so that it makes it harder, rather, to take for people to take advantage of you. And yeah, sociopaths and psychopaths and even people who manipulate, they will take advantage of you. And it is unfortunately our job to be smarter and better and do better than that, because life is realism and we never know what's coming at us, so we have to prepare. So yeah, set up healthy boundaries, talk to your friends, and look, if someone sets up a boundary with you, it's nothing personal towards you either. It has nothing to do with you. A boundary can be it could be for against for you or against you, but in general, boundaries are for everybody, really. It's like the boundaries wouldn't be that different from person to person. If you don't like to be touched, most likely you don't like to be touched by most people. Maybe some people you allow family or maybe your relationships, but also maybe not. So learn that boundaries it has nothing to do with you. So take that ego part out of it. When people set a boundary, take yourself out of it. It has nothing to do with you. Just do what they request out of you and respect it and understand it. Another thing schools should teach is what Einstein talked about quite a bit as well, which was compounding and compounding math, compounding interest. I hate that we are taught things like algebra, which is completely useless for most of the people. And then we're not taught about what why you should put money, for example, in, I don't care if it's an ETF or mutual funds or some kind of diversified portfolio. I'm not here to give you investing advice. What I'm saying is you should know that putting money in investing will have a thing called compound interest work in your favor. And the fact that people don't realize this, here's what I think a lot of people think about investment in stocks, for example, or ETFs or anything like this. Okay, they go, it can be a gamble, maybe it's not a gamble. Okay, they see that rich people do it, so probably it's good for those people who know investing, quote unquote. Okay, I think that's what a lot of people think, and then that's basically full stop. What I think it is if you put money into a diversified enough portfolio, you will have money going into over time accrue into something called compound interest, which will work immensely in your favor as long as your money is inside of those ETF stocks or whatever investment instrument that you're using. Because as long as you're inside of, as long as the money is inside of there, then you will benefit from compounding interest. And the way I think about it like this, if it's like explain it like I'm 5, okay? Maybe we use this one. Maybe I've used this one in a prior episode. If I have, I apologize that I'm about to repeat myself. But I think about it like this: if you're standing in the Empire State Building, okay? Empire State Building, if you've ever been there, has more than one elevator. So let's say you're standing there, and let's say for argument's sake, there's 5 elevators in front of you, okay? And you click the button on all 5 of those elevators. You don't know which elevator is coming down first, and you don't know also which elevator is going to be getting you to the top the fastest, okay? All you know is that on average, these elevators go up, okay? And that's how stocks and ETFs and these diversified things work, is that on average, they go up more than they go down. We know that from measuring since all of these different things opened up and started, the stock exchange, right? So we know that for a fact. So you know that when you're getting these elevators, on average they're going to go up. So you have 5 bags of all of your savings, or not all of your savings. I'm not saying that maybe, but but investment money enough to where you want to invest in. Okay, so you take whatever money you have that you want to invest, you divide it into 5 different bags, and you are thinking, okay, I'm going to start putting them in these different elevators. How would you put your money into those elevators? Some people would say, I'm going to put 5 money bags in one elevator and hope for the best. Some people are going to say, I'm going to diversify, so I'm going to put 1 money bag in each elevator. And then other people are going to say, maybe I'll do gamble. Maybe I'll do 3 in one bag, 1 and 2 in one. Or another person will say, I'll do 2 and 1, and 1 will be empty. There's all kinds of variations of this. But just know that as long as you put your money in these elevators, on average, these elevators will go up. You just don't know which one will go up faster than the others. Classical advice is that you should do something called diversification. You should diversify so that you don't put all of your money into that one elevator, but rather probably put in money in more than 5 elevators, actually. But do that, and know that the elevators will go up on certain one. And then when the elevators go up, then you just keep putting more money on the elevators that you think are good, and spread those bags out. And if you do that, you will take advantage of time and compounding interest, which on average should make people money. Am I right?
Yeah.
On average. Now, short term, if you don't diversify, the risk is that you lose your money. And on short term, also, any single given ETF or stock or whatever can also, of course, go down. So you cannot. You have to have the time. But in general, investing money is not gambling. It can be.
Well, if you pick like single stocks, then
you're gambling.
It's really really risky, so don't do what I did. But ETFs like S&P 500, these are really solid. It's basically as long as you think that in case of S&P 500, as long as you think the US is going to do well in the future, on average it's going to grow. And then it's just about putting in that money on a regular basis, and compound interest will take care of that. So if you get dividends, for example, then you put in these dividends into your investment again, and then you will get more dividends, which means you can do more investing, which means you will get more dividends, which means you can do more investing again.
Yeah.
And that's exponential growth, which is compound interest.
That's a better example than what I had. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's perfect. Derivatives are a perfect example because you literally get a payoff as being
Dividends,
a part owner.
Dividends, you mean?
Dividends. Yeah, dividend. That too. Yeah, dividends. Sorry, I said derivatives, didn't I? Yeah, dividends. But I was also thinking. Yeah. Yeah. No, exactly. Dividends. Yeah, if they or splits and all kinds of things. And I think this is something that should be taken into account in anything, right? Because if you're like working a job and you work a whole career, for example, you're gonna make money, you're gonna hopefully take some of that money and invest it, and maybe you buy a house with it, and that house increases in value and blah blah blah, and that's exponential value if you work over a whole career. Relationships, same thing there. If you just meet somebody, it's kind of easy come, easy go. You know, you might have one fight, two fights, or something like that, and you might go, I'm not really interested in knowing this person that much. They tend to kind of cause drama. But if that was a person you've known for 20 years, two fights, you'd be like, that's nothing. So, you know, you have that exponential growth as well. If you go through a lot of, like you said, difficult things with your friend or partner, then that pays off a lot. You know, you're willing to do. You know, I have friends that I've grown up with that I haven't talked to in many, many, many years. But if they call me at 4 o'clock in the morning, not only am I answering, but I'm coming or two, right? Like it has nothing to do with the fact that I haven't talked to them in a couple of years. But if they needed my help, they would call and I would immediately help them. And that's because of, you know, really just that compounded interest of spending so much time arguing and doing fun things together and being better people and growing and blah 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 blah. That it's just been such a investment. Same thing with the podcast. Podcasts are always known that when you first start, you know, you get no listeners, and then you know, you keep doing the podcast long enough, and eventually, you know, you'll have you'll have a takeoff velocity that will be more people will come and listen and recommend your podcast than you will lose, which means that, you know, if each and every single episode you will get more and more and more and more listeners. And it's just like that that you were talking about with dividends. You just reinvest it back in. And the thing about all this is that you have to know about compounded interest, but you also have to trust the process and continue doing it too. The reason why most podcasts, for example, end is because they never get to that compounded interest of podcast listeners, that takeoff velocity where it's easier to acquire new listeners than losing them, and therefore you have a positive arc. Then after that, you just put in more time, and that positive arc will just blow up. But that arc is really slow in the beginning. You have to look at a compounded interest kind of you know, curve, or what do they call it, hockey stick. You know, it's very slow for a long time in the beginning, and then only after some time it goes and takes off on you, and it makes that velocity that just really is what you need. And before that, you don't get it. That's like, you know, when we talk about most people start a podcast and they stop the podcast at seventh episode, and we are now recording on the 10th. That's the thing. You know, we haven't even started seeing our growth we consider, and most people already, half of the people who ever started a podcast have already quit by now. And yeah, that's not how you get compound interest. It takes more time than that. And the last thing I had, which was that I would really, because you talk about it a lot in leadership courses in corporate, but it's not really taught that much in school, in my opinion, which is a mistake. And that is learning what countermeasures are to anything that's not going your way. Processes, work, relationships, anything. Learn what countermeasures are, and the importance of revisiting those countermeasures once you've implemented them, to test to make sure they're still working as they should, they're still being effective, and if they're not, and if they are, or if they're not, if they can be removed.
And can you give an example?
Yeah, so let's say that the store closes at 9 p.m. on Fridays, and on Fridays I work late, so I get home later than 9, which means that when I come home, I usually like to order something. As an example, okay, you order some food maybe because you want to reward yourself and it's Friday. The countermeasure to that is knowing on that Thursday when you're in the grocery store that Friday is coming, and I'm going to make sure I have something good in my fridge or in my freezer or whatever in my cupboard, so that when Friday comes, when I come home from work, I, number one, don't have to order something, but number two, actually reaching for that cupboard or whatever is much quicker and faster and more satisfying than ordering something in the first place anyway. And then so you do that as a countermeasure. You try to use that as well, but eventually maybe you don't need them anymore. Because you have habitualized this, or maybe you don't need it anymore because one reason or another, it's no longer important. Like, let's say you started dieting, and then because you're dieting, you no longer need you need to reward yourself on Fridays, so you remove it altogether. Like buying that goodie thing every Thursday, and then you realize you haven't been eating them in the last couple of Fridays would be a countermeasure that would be not good. And yeah, that's something they talk about in leadership courses a lot, because countermeasures are difficult even as a professional do. So
To me, it sounds like anticipating a problem and then finding solutions for the problem before the problem occurs.
yeah,
At least the example you just gave.
yeah, I think so. Yeah, and look, all these things that we just talked about for the education system, these are just the base. We really should start looking at implementing some of these things. They're just suggestions. They're not thought through, that hard, but they're just like something to get your mind started a little bit. It'd be interesting to hear what you think about education and the points that we brought up. Maybe you have some points of your own. That would be good. I would love to hear them as well, that we can consider. Maybe we can do an episode 3 on education revamp. I think these are really, really fun. We can talk about them forever, but it would be interesting to hear from you guys, your listeners, what are some of the things you would want to see in an education system that should be changed. Maybe there's some things about jobs that parents used to teach but has been delegated or relegated to the education system that maybe is should be there or should not be there. We didn't even cover or talk anything like that about it on this episode. So if you have some ideas, come and join our Discord. It is to be found, of course, in our link tree, and our link tree link can be found in the description. So look at the link tree and then go to our Discord to interact with us and give us your ideas. We really want to hear from you guys, and also come and join us. We will do some live recordings of the episode as well on the podcast, where we have built a stage and you can come in and just listen. It'll mute your mic for you, so you just come in and just listen to us talk live, and you can write in the chat while we're doing it. And it'd be cool if we could start interacting with our community live while recording. That'd be crazy, huh? As if we don't have enough things to do already, Udo.
Yeah.
But look, we love you guys. Take care, stay safe out there, and we'll talk again real soon on the next one.
See ya.